Guys, this is Rickard from Soreption, and you're watching RichardMetalFan.
Hey, what's up, guys? Episode 306 of Richard Metal Fan Interviews, calling from Zoom, and I have Rickard Persson from Soreption. So, how are you doing today on this awesome Thanksgiving?
Yeah, I'm doing good. Just got off work, basically, it's a regular Thursday for us here in Sweden, no Thanksgiving for us, but
Really?
all good, sir.
Really, I was just wondering if there's like a Swedish version of Thanksgiving.
A Swedish version, I don't know about that. I mean, we're big on kind of like Easter's and Christmases and stuff like that, but no real, no real Thanksgiving for us.
Man, that's so weird. I've never even heard of a country that doesn't celebrate Thanksgiving.
Well, you do now, sir.
Well, I guess the more I know. But it's so good to be able to talk with you. So, kind of like I wanted to talk about is your musical history and sort of do like a rundown of your discography. But take me back to young Rickard Persson. So, growing up in Sweden, what were the first bands that got you into metal? What made you want to slap at the bass?
What made me want to slap the bass? Oh yeah, that's a good question, sir. Well, basically, I got into music from a very young age. I come from a family where music is quite kind of like, yeah, it's a big part of my life. Basically, from my mother's side, she got me into piano, and from that, I started to get more interested in music and stuff. And gradually I got interested into heavy music. Basically, like Kiss was my first real hook, I would say. I saw this program, this show on TV called, I think it's called Shooting for the Stars or something like that. I don't know if you guys have something. I'm guessing it's like an American thing that's been brought over to Sweden.
Never even heard of that.
I don't know. It's
I mean, we
basically like
have
a
Dancing
talent
with the
show.
Stars, but not Shooting with the Stars. But I know there's like America's Got Talent with Simon Cowell from American Idol.
Okay, yeah. Well, I mean, the direct kind of like translation is well, shooting for the stars, and basically there's people that get to kind of like play covers of their favorite artists and stuff like that. So I saw this guy who was kind of like doing a Kiss song with the full makeup and everything on, and then I was basically hooked.
Wow.
Thought it was the coolest thing ever. So from that day, I was about 12 years old. I only listened to Kiss, and I wanted to play the bass.
Yeah, it was like Gene
So
Simmons an influence on you.
yeah, yeah, I wore the makeup and everything, full blown Kiss maniac. So I did that for a couple of years. Basically only listened to Kiss, and then it graduated to Metallica. Only listened to Metallica for a couple of years, and that went to Slayer. Only listening to Slayer for a couple of years, and after that, I kind of like broadened my kind of like vision of what's out there in terms of metal music, and discovered the whole genre a bit more.
Yeah. Yeah, but do you remember like the first like death metal band you heard? Because I know you started with Kiss, but then you got gradually evolved to like Metallica and then
Oh,
Slayer.
yeah. I mean, the first death metal band I heard was probably like Carcass.
Ooh. Probably my favorite
Probably.
death metal band.
Oh yeah.
Like I think Heartwork is a
Amazing.
great album.
Yeah, it is. It's a real classic. So yeah, Carcass was one big one, and Morbid Angel. The first time I heard Morbid Angel, I was kind of like totally
Yeah.
blown away.
Yeah, but who's your favorite
Cannibal
Morbid?
Corpse.
Yeah, like what's your favorite like Morbid Angel era? Do you prefer like the Vincent or Tucker era?
I mean, I love David Vincent. I mean, his vocals are the best, I think.
Yeah.
So I'm
And
not
what do
I'm
you
a
think
Vincent
about
guy.
I Am Morbid, which is basically him and Pete Sandoval playing like the first four Morbid Angel album songs?
Oh yeah, I've heard about it, but I haven't kind of like listened too much to it. I mean, I've seen a few live clips and stuff like that, but I haven't gotten into it really.
Yeah, I was
So,
lucky to see him. I saw him live a week or two ago in Atlanta, and it
oh
was
really?
great.
Oh
It felt
cool.
like I kind of went back in time to like the late '80s or '90s,
Yeah,
hearing like that era, like Altars of Madness, Covenant, and shit like that.
yeah. I mean, his voice, his singing is really it's top notch. Really
Nice.
brutal. I love it.
Nice. So you started getting into the music, but then what was like your first band's like pre-Soreption? Like I'm digging deep. Like I don't think nobody's ever asked you that.
Like I've been playing with.
Yeah. Like right before you end up starting up Soreption.
Oh yeah. Oh, well, I've been playing with various bands, kind of like local bands, here back home in Sweden, at my hometown, with friends from school, and it's been everything from like heavy metal to punk to rock. I mean, I think Soreption is basically the only real, well, I played in another death metal band too as well. Yeah, I have. But I mean, I think Soreption is kind of like the most extreme uh, kind of music I've been playing for sure.
Nice. And
Yeah.
so Soreption formed in 2005. So you're coming up on almost 20 years of
Yeah,
Soreption. You got to think about it, man.
that's
Nearly
crazy.
20 years. Like, did you think that Soreption would be around for 20 years? And there's just anything with the band that we'd still want to achieve after all these years?
I mean, there's still. I mean, that's a really good question. Of course. I mean, there's of course a lot of stuff to be achieved. Of course. But I haven't really been thinking about it in that way. And gosh, we've been around for like 20 years. It's like we old now.
Yeah.
Time flies, basically. So yeah, but I don't know really.
Yeah.
I mean, more tours. I mean, that would be nice. More music. I mean, record more albums, putting it out. You know.
Yeah. And yeah, and then you started playing around like Sweden and stuff. And then I believe you got signed to your first label, which was Cube One Records in Sweden. So how did they
Yeah.
find Soreption?
Well, Cube One was basically that was a local label, with some guys we knew here in our hometown. So, and you know, they heard about us, and well, actually, we recorded at their studio first. Yeah, and then the label kind of picked us up. We did some kind of like, um, yeah, we worked together for a couple of years.
Yeah. And then tell me about making that first EP, Illuminate the
Oh yeah.
Excessive. So where was that recorded at?
Well, that was recorded at a place called Side Lake Studios here in Sundsvall, Sweden. Um, yeah, that was a brutal recording session. I remember it like it was yesterday because yeah, we had 4 songs and we were kind of like we went in with our own kind of like we paid it all for ourselves by ourselves. I mean, from our own pockets basically, and yeah, I think I had to nail all the songs on one day basically, and no retakes, nothing like that, just 2 songs before lunch and 2 songs after lunch, and then like at 4 o'clock in the afternoon we stopped. There was no messing about. It was just getting in there and getting the tracks down as efficient as possible.
Wow, so you like
And
nailed it in like one day or something?
yeah, I mean, it was like, yeah, I started two songs in the morning, and then lunch break, and then 2 songs in the afternoon,
Yeah.
and
That's
and
very
then like yeah,
rare for a band like to get an album done in like one day. The only one band I could think of is Black Sabbath. Like they finished their first album in one day.
oh yeah. Well, I mean, that was the one day was for the bass recordings. I mean, that was for one. Yeah, do that in one day. Then we had other days for drums as well and
Oh.
guitar. But I mean, I only had one day for bass, and I remember I thought it was kind of like pretty challenging because yeah, it was hard music to play, man.
Yeah, and I thought it's interesting, like the song names, like track one is just called one, track two, two.
Yeah.
I was always curious, like what made you decide to just like have like each song be like number one, or did you just couldn't come up with like song names for them?
I think the idea was when we started the band that we weren't going to have like song titles. I mean, the first idea of the band was kind of like, okay, we're gonna do like by numbers, and we're gonna keep it like that. So, but we kind of squashed that idea pretty fast after the EP, and was kind of like, yeah, we should go with real song titles. instead.
Yeah.
Probably a better idea.
All
I
right.
don't know.
All right. And so like during that time, did you st time when the EP came out, did you just start playing just locally, just around Sweden?
Oh yeah, just locally. Basically shows back home in our hometown. Some club shows, some a smaller festival that we have here in our hometown, and we also had a few shows, kind of like yeah, just in Sweden, couple of miles north, couple of miles south, and we had one show down in Karlstad in Sweden. That was kind of like a fairly long ride.
Yeah. And
So,
then
but
yeah. And then going into your debut full-length album, Deterioration of Minds, I thought that's a
yeah.
really great debut album. So what was sort of like the thought process going into making like the debut full-length Soreption album?
Well, oh my God, that's a hard question. It was a long time ago, man. Are you thinking like songwriting and stuff like that,
Yeah,
or
pretty much like the whole writing and recording process.
oh, shit. Well, yeah, we're kind of having we are having kind of like a very special. I don't know if it is very special, but well, we have a certain way that we write songs, basically. So we all use Guitar Pro when we write, and well, basically, I sit at home, write riffs with my bass or guitar, into program it into Guitar Pro and send it to Tony, our drummer, and here is basically kind of like uh, doing patching it all together, all the riffs, kind of like, and making songs out of it. And well, I don't know the thought process of doing the album. I mean, we were kind of like heavy influenced by, I mean, the Decapitated at the time. So those guys were super great, and yeah, still are, of course.
Yeah, fucking legends.
Yeah, fucking legends. Yeah, so those guys were a huge influence, and well, we just wanted to make like, okay, the most, well, I don't know if the most extreme, but we always wanted to play like technical death metal and tech death, and we didn't think that any other band back home here in Sweden, I mean, at least where we're coming from, did that. It was kind of like, okay, that's basically okay. Decapitated are from Poland, yeah, sure, but tech death is something like, it's very prominent in the States and stuff like that. So we didn't think like, okay, maybe there's not much local bands here where we come from in Sweden that does this. So we want to take a shot at it.
Yeah. And this year does also, well, next year will mark 15 years of Deteriorations of Mind. So how do you feel about the album now, 15 years later? Do you have like a different viewpoint about it now as to when you first put it out almost 15 years ago?
Um, I don't I don't know if I have a different viewpoint of it. I mean, I still love it. I think it's a solid album. I think the songs are great. So yeah, I think, and we also do when we do play live. It's not very often we do, but when we do, we often do songs from that album as well. So it's a album that I hold quite close to my heart. Absolutely, I love it. Some good memories of it as well, from the time that was.
Yeah, like every song on there is perfect. Like going to the Suppressing the Mute, which has a bit like
Yeah,
you mentioned a bit of that tech death with like Decapitated with a bit of Meshuggah mixed into it, and even
yeah,
like
yeah, yeah.
like the Hypocrite Undying has some really intricate work. So I feel like every song has like different kind of like vibes behind it.
Yeah, I mean, absolutely. I mean, you mentioned two bands there that are quite big influences for us. I mean, of course, as we mentioned, Decapitated before, but I mean, Meshuggah is kind of like they're Swedish heroes for us.
Yeah,
I mean,
yeah, your fellow Swedes gotta love them.
yeah, yeah, sure. I mean, absolutely, and they're fucking legends too.
Yeah. And then when of course Deteriorations of Minds first came out, wow, what was like the touring cycle for that? Did you start finally playing outside of Sweden?
Yeah, we did. Oh, I can't really remember the dates, man. I feel so unprepared.
It's all
But
good.
yeah, well, yeah, I'm old, so you have to give me slack for that as well.
Hey,
But we did.
I'm old too. I'm only 30. So
You're only 30. You're young.
yeah, I get that a lot. People say I look older than I really am.
Oh, yeah. Well, I'm over 40, so I mean, it's
Yeah,
yeah.
and you still look good, man.
Oh, thank you. Thanks, man. Well, okay, I have to think. I don't think we did a European tour. Uh, well, we did one European tour, uh, but yeah, it has to be in between Deterioration of Minds and Engineering Void, I think. But I mean, the whole touring thing for us didn't came about until later, basically after Engineering Void. That was the time basically when we started the tour.
Yeah. And then going into of course the next album, Engineering the Void, I thought that was a great album. I feel like that was where things started to pick up for you guys, in my opinion, because that was sort of like the album I first heard about you guys, and then I pretty much been a fan of what you've been putting out since then. But talking about the album, like usually with the debut full length album, you have like your entire life to write, and there's a lot of hype with that first album. But when it came to making Engineering the Void, did you felt pressure to follow up Deterioration of Minds?
I mean, not pressure in that sense, I think. I mean, I don't really remember actually what we were kind of feeling about it, but uh, I mean, I think we always kind of like try to push ourselves to make that band evolve in some sense. I mean, for all the records that we put out, there always been like uh, a thought of that. Well, we should evolve the band in some sense. I mean, make it more in this way or more in that way. So, and I don't think we didn't feel like pressure in that sense, but we maybe like pressure from ourselves. We wanted it to be like, okay, we want this album to be better than the last one, and I think that's basically the whole mindset we've been having all the time, throughout our the life of this band. Basically, we always want to make the next album better than the previous.
Yeah. And of course, this year does mark 10 years of Engineering the Void. So I'm always
Yeah,
curious about how you feel about that album now, 10 years later.
yeah. Well, I still love that album as well. I mean, the album has some great songs to it. I mean, and as well with Deterioration of Minds, there are many songs from that album that we do play live. And yeah, it's a solid album, and it's kind of like that's a really special album for me personally because I actually quit the band after we recorded it.
Yeah. And how hard was
And
it to leave Soreption?
yeah, it was kind of tough. I mean, I was kind of like it was hard. I was thinking like that I was kind of like growing up in some sense, and that I didn't want to go out on tours and like give that much to the band like the other guys wanted to. I mean, I was kind of like, okay, guys, you want to go on tour and be out, well, pretty much a lot, you would say. And I wasn't like in that place, so I was kind of like, okay, maybe I should step away from this. So that was
Yeah.
basically the whole thing. But it was tough. It was.
Yeah. But then after that you joined up with the Holdhast, and you did the album in 20 their album in 2015, Lat Oss for Brynna. No, so
Yeah.
tell me about that and how'd you end up hooking up with those guys?
Well, those guys were kind of like some good friends from here, from back home here in Sundsvall. So it was kind of like that was a fun thing. It was kind of, yeah, they had this project and was kind of like asking, do you wanna play bass? You know, this thing, and yeah, sure, why not? I mean, it's kind of like a black death metal kind of thing, uh, pretty much, and it wasn't something I've played before, so I was kind of like, yeah, why not? Come try that as well.
Yeah.
See how it goes.
And how does playing with them compared to like playing with Soreption? Is there any like differences between the two?
Well, yeah, absolutely. They're kind of like two completely different music styles. I mean, it's Soreption is, as you know, technical death metal and with everything that comes with that, and to play to compare that to like black metal is kind of like a night and day, or black death metal, or what you want to call it.
Yeah. Yeah.
Pretty different.
Yeah. And then of course, flash forward to a few years in 2018, you rejoined Soreption. So what made you decide to
Yeah.
come back?
Um, well, it started, back in 2015, actually, the whole thing, kind of like the whole process of me coming back, because I was kind of like, I got a question to jump in and fill in for one of the guys who had to go back home for a tour connecting to another tour. And they basically asked me if I wanted to do a tour with Cannibal Corpse and cattle decapitation. So I was kind of like, yeah, well, that sounds cool. I would
Nice.
love to do that. And that was basically just filling in for the other guys. So, but it was fun. So and then it's well, went a couple of years, and then that's 2018. We did the Archspire tour, yeah, with Revocation and Rivers of Nile. Yeah, and around that time, I was kind of like, yeah, it was time to get back on the horse, basically, and get back into the band.
Yeah, yeah, because
But
I remember 2018. That was the first time I saw Soreption. You did the Summer Slaughter tour, and that
oh
was like
yeah,
my first time seeing you guys. And that was that. Correct me if I'm wrong. Was that like your first time playing in the States?
no, it wasn't. I think the first time. Oh man, I think the guys played in the States before I came back in. I mean, around 2015, and yeah, we've been playing before that tour for sure.
Yeah.
And I didn't play on that tour. I think no, I didn't.
Oh,
I'm quite sure I did. No, I didn't. It was kind of like the connecting tour, the tour after the European run we did that year.
yeah. But then, of course, talking about the latest album, Jord, I thought that was a good album, and it's been out came out 2 years ago. So how was what was the sort of like the writing and recording process like for Jord, being that was like your first record back with the band?
Yeah, it was kind of like the whole process was basically the same as before. I mean, we always been writing, in Guitar Pro and stuff like that. So that was the main tool that we used, and writing a bunch of riffs and getting it into shape for songs, basically.
Yeah. Yeah, and then musically, I guessing for the band, did you want to continue after the band left off with Monument at the end, or for you, did you want to pick up after like Engineering the Void?
What what was that?
I guessing for you when it came to making Jord, did you wanted to pick up where the band left off with Monument of the End, or for you personally, did you wanted to continue after Engineering the Void?
Oh, I'm not sure. I wasn't kind of like so super involved in the whole writing process for Jord, actually. So yeah, I don't know. I don't really know if I can answer that correctly.
Yeah. But of course, like like the album's been out for now 2 years now. Now,
Yeah,
how has like the overall like feedback been for the album?
it's been good. I think it's been good. I mean, people like it real much. I mean, I think it's kind of like, well, it's a it's a Soreption album. It's a lot of tech, a lot of groove, and I think it's been fairly decent for sure.
Yeah. Yeah, I like every song on there is great. Even like the opening track, The Artificial North is good. Like going to
Yeah, it's
that, to
good.
Prophecy. And I love the last song, Yod Jord, which I thought was interesting. Like the title was in Swedish, but the lyrics are in English.
Yeah, yeah, it is. I mean, I think there's at the end of the song, there's kind of like this Swedish part, where
Yeah.
he's kind of like have a chunk of lyrics that he sings in Swedish. That's pretty cool. And of course, the chorus is in Swedish as well, or at least a part of it. When he sings the whole the jord, as we say here in Sweden.
Yeah.
That's in Swedish too. So yeah, it was kind of like an homage to our to our home nation, basically.
Yeah.
Do something in Swedish.
Yeah. And what does Dod Jord mean in English?
Basically, dead Earth.
That's fucking
Yeah,
metal, man.
yeah, dead Earth.
Yeah. But talking, I'm also curious about kind of switching topics to talk about your bass playing. And I know you've heard their fair share of bass player jokes and memes and stuff, but I love how you
Yeah,
don't gravitate towards flashy bass playing. But I feel like you find ways to link what the guitars are doing with the melody and what the drums are doing with the rhythm, but in a very creative sense. But when it comes to like recording, like what's your approach to playing bass?
yeah. Well, the whole writing process when writing bass lines for us, I mean, we're kind of like, as well, I'm guessing you figure out, we're very guitar oriented, as every death metal band is basically. But I don't know, when I'm writing bass parts, I'm trying to keep it interesting, trying to kind of like supplement the guitar in some sense. I mean, not just play the guitar parts just straight up, but do something more with it. And sometimes it's kind of hard, I think, because there's so much happening in the music. It's really intense, the whole thing. So it's kind of hard sometimes to find room for the bass to kind of come out and be its own thing. But yeah, well, I do my best. And as far as recording stuff, I mean, Jord, that album I recorded back home at my home studio, and well, we're gonna do the same for the next album too. We just recording at home, take a week vacation from work, and just blast it through the
Yeah.
whole album.
Yeah. And do you think it's easy to like record like at home versus like going to like a studio?
Yeah, I mean, I think it has some ups and downs for sure. I mean, the whole thing, well, the positive things, maybe it's kind of obvious. You have kind of like somewhat unlimited time to do it. I mean, you can record at any time of the day. You can do it in night, in the morning, in the day. I mean, and you're not like dependent on any other person showing up. But if you're recording in a studio, of course, you have kind of like the whole thing where you can, talk to an engineer, get some feedback from your playing, and maybe he's hearing stuff that I'm not hearing. So that's pretty much the challenging part of recording back at your home place, at your home studio.
Yeah. And I'm also curious about like your bass setup because I see in the back you got like a Stingray bass
Yeah.
bass and stuff. So I'm always curious like with recording and playing live, like what's like your setup in terms of like basses and strings and pedals and amps and all that stuff.
Yeah, I mean, for live situations, I got my 6-string Ibanez that I use mostly, and I've been using it for a couple of years. And since we're kind of like, when we're touring, we always try to travel light, with flights and stuff like that, because it costs a lot of money to bring gear to the States. And so I'm just doing like the little pedal board thing and go direct. I've been doing that for years, and then I got a quad cortex that I've been using from Neural DSP. Super stuff. So that's basically, the quad cortex is basically my whole live rig, and then just go direct to the PA.
All right.
We don't have any cabs or any stuff like that, or any amplifiers.
Cool. And so kind of like in the end to sort of wrap things up, what's next for Soreption? I know you started mentioning that you start working on the next album. So what's like the current
Yeah.
status with that, if you're allowed to say?
Well, I mean, yeah, I don't know what I can disclose of that, but I mean, the songs are coming along really good, really well. We're super happy with it, and for me personally, it's kind of like, it's the first time I've been kind of like involved with the writing process personally, like on a bigger scale. So I've been, yeah, writing about a bunch of riffs on my own that I'm super happy with, and super happy that they're gonna come out on the record as well.
Right.
So
And
yeah.
and musically, are you going to try to continue in the same vein as Jord, or are you going to try to do something different that Soreption hasn't done before?
Well, we are, well, in some sense, we always try to maybe kind of like evolve the band, of course, as I talked about before. Uh, we want to kind of like push the band forward, and always like, yeah, move on to the next thing in some sense, never stagnate, or what is the word?
Yeah.
Is stagnate?
Yeah, pretty much, or pretty much like stay like in just one place.
Oh yeah. We don't want to do that. So yeah, sure. Language barrier.
Yeah. But
Well,
Yeah, but thank you, man, for this conversation. It's so great to be able to talk with you today. It's just
Yeah,
anything else with Soreption if you that you want to also plug in terms of tours and stuff, and when can we expect you all to come back to the States for a tour?
absolutely. You can. Can't
Nice.
say when, but you can. We're definitely going over.
Yes.